Hello there and welcome to Fyendal's Library. Today we're going to be looking at another new hero from Monarch. This time we're looking at Chane, a Shadow Runeblade. So the second Runeblade that we've had after Viserai, but he's specifically a Shadow Runeblade. So that means he can use the Shadow cards and the Runeblade cards that are being released in the latest set. So I'm pronouncing it Chane. It seems that there's a little bit of discrepancy in the community about how it's pronounced, but I'm going with Chane. I was going to go into maybe it means chaos or carnage, but it probably just means Chane, because that's kind of related to his ability. So his ability allows him to create what's called a soul shackle, and he can do this once per turn. And each of the soul shackle tokens that you have banishes a card from the top of your deck. Now that might sound like a load of rubbish. There is another upside. It gives his next Runeblade or Shadow action go again, which is important. But because Chane has a lot of cards, that he can play from the banished zone, by banishing cards from the top of your deck, you're almost giving yourself more cards that you can use to play your big turn. And that all kind of leads up to this card Eclipse, which was released very early on in the spoiler season, which allows you to summon a Sir, which is the Soul Reaper. And you can do that if you played 6 or more cards with Blood Debt in one turn. So obviously with a hand size of 4, one card, even with one card in Arsenal, that's only 5 cards. You need to be playing these cards from the banished zone. So if you can get lots of cards at the banished zone that you can play from there, you can do a big long turn where you play 6 cards with Blood Debt in one turn, and then you can summon a Sir. And it seems to be, in terms of where that word comes from, it seems to be a play on the word usurp or usurp, which is, considering the creature's motivations, as we'll look at in the backstory, seems very apt. Now, I really love Chane's ability. I think it really paints this picture of Chane shackling himself to Sir in exchange for power. And it's like, how many shackles can you withstand before all your cards are in the banished zone, or all your cards have been taken from you? And it's like, what's the limit of this power that you are willing to take? I think that says a lot about Chane too. Now, with the announcement of Chane, we also got an update on the Demonastery page, which added a new section on the earlier history of this Mansion of Shadow that we've been talking about in videos recently. So let's look at the story of Chane and also the story of the Demonastery, his home, and how that place came to be. So, Chane is a member of the Disciples of Pain. Their goal is to unlock the limits of human potential and free Wraith from what they describe as Solanian oppression from the city of Solana. So to understand Chane, we really need to understand Solana and Solanian culture, because the monastery was founded by none other than the founder of Solana itself, or that's what's heavily suggested by the lore. So I'm going to read a piece that talks about this founder here. It's told that once there lived a powerful scholar who gathered his people and guided them in building a mighty city which would stand as a symbol of radiant truth. Under his guidance, that city, called Solana, entered a golden age of illumination and understanding. However, as their strength grew, the scholar delved deeper into the history of humanity and uncovered a secret which unraveled the very deepest mysteries of Wraith. This terrible burden weighed heavily on his mind and turned him against all that he had believed in, driving him to seek out a different kind of power. He sought to found a great work which would free all of humanity and elevate him to the realm beyond. So this founder of Solana came across this truth, and it completely turned his belief system on its head. And he wanted to seek out this new power, so leave behind this power, this radiant truth that had led him to discovering the city of Solana, and put that to one side to discover something new. And naturally, he was cast out of Solana, and those around him were terrified by his newfound power. He left to found the Demonastery, a place where he could pursue his work free of persecution and against judgment, against the morality of what he was doing. But Solana's fear soon switched, and rather than being terrified of his power, it was replaced by this fiery hatred. The legions of the City of Light began to encroach on the Demonastery, and in order to keep those forces at bay, he literally tore the foundations of the mansion away from the island of Wraith and created a brand new isle severed from the outside world. And as you can see on the map of Wraith, The monastery is separate to the main body of land. It's its own island, and we're led to believe that his power was so strong that he could literally rip the earth away and create a whole new island. In the end, it is said that the founder of both the City of Light and the City of Shadow fused himself with the demonastery, and he remains part of that place itself, and he still guides its actions to this day. But what does this mean for Chane? So Chane was raised amongst the disciples of Pain, and shares their knowledge of the power of the Old Ones and the true nature of the city of Solana. He embraced pain, and with it felt his connection to the shadow grow stronger. Through years of pain and work, he rose to become an apostle of the disciples of Pain, and is described as a gifted caster and also researcher. He was not alone. He said he's found solace and camaraderie with his fellow disciples. He is even said to think of them as his family. They lived perhaps in fear that the light would expunge them from the world of Wraith. They knew that Solana sought the return of the Aesir, whose immeasurable power would overwhelm them in the land of Wraith. He and his disciples sought ways to weaken the Old Ones and harness their arcane power to their own ends. So the Aesir it seems that the Aesir are these sort of angelic creatures, and they're linked to the Old Ones in some way, and they're almost invincible, and mere humans can't really do anything against them. So these disciples of Pain knew that when these Aesir would come to the land of Wraith, they would be destroyed, and they needed to find a way to save themselves. So Chane, he researched, and he looked for solutions. He looked for a way to save his people, and he spent a great deal of time. It's said that he became wrinkled, he got old, he became sort of ashen-faced, and he was close to giving up. But when he was at that point, a voice whispered to him, and he knew what he then needed to do. They would lay waste to Solana, but they would not be alone. When Viserai broke the shattered veil between the world of Wraith and Arathiel, the realm of ancients lay open to them, and Chane entered that realm. He knew that the Old Ones were untouchable for the hands of man, so that disciples would harness the might of the ancients for themselves. They would use that power against them. In the unknown world, he walked for many days, seeking out ancient creatures known as Embra, creatures whose power could give them victory. The land was strange, ethereal, jagged edges and blood-stained wastes. The land itself altered itself around them with every breath, like the land of Aria, but at high speed. As they walked, the darkness grew deeper and murkier. Shadow fell around them, and soon that shadow became a true darkness. They were blind and deaf, but Chane stood still, waiting, as a figure appeared, ashen mist and wrought gold, with dark wings. The creature known as Ursa promised Chane the power he needed. With it he could destroy his enemies and free his people from the tyranny of Solana. And in return, the creature asked for just one thing: that Chane would be bound to the creature, a conduit, an emissary of void. Chane felt the power flow through him, but he knew that he must now act as an apostle for the shadow and spread the darkness across Wraith, else Ursa would take from him his power, and likely his life too. One wrong move, and Chane's soul may be lost forever. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be covering the 2 heroes that are yet to be announced for Monarch when they're released, so I hope you look forward to seeing that. Please check out my previous videos for some brief updates on the channel, and I look forward to seeing you next time.